Hello! So, as the title says, I have decided not to submit any more cards for grading or to purchase more graded cards. I know it sounds a bit sensational, and it's probably worth issuing a caveat that, maybe at some point I will buy another graded card, especially if I get a really, really good deal, but it's not something I'm going to be actively seeking as part of my collection, nor is it something I'm going to be trying to flip in the future. And so, what I wanted to do is create a video to tell people why I made that decision, just to explain it in case any of this information that has formed my opinion is helpful to you. I want to be clear that it's not because I want to yuck anyone's yum. For people who enjoy graded cards or any other aspect of the hobby that I don't particularly enjoy, that's good for you, and I hope you continue to enjoy it, and I don't want this to make you sad or downtrodden about something that you enjoy. I should also probably clarify that it's not necessarily in my best interest to say this. I do have some graded cards that I'm already looking to sell or to trade, so I wouldn't want to say this for them to go down in value. Not that I think this video would actually do that. And interestingly, in the main card hobby that I'm into, Star Wars CCG grading is actually just starting to heat up. But now is the time I'm deciding to pull out. And so here's some of the reasons. It comes down to three things. The first one, for me, number one, is issues around customer service with grading companies. Now, this is nothing new. People have talked about this a lot before. It's pretty obvious to anyone who's ever tried to get cards graded. But I will share some issues I experienced just to add to that anecdotal data that you might have collected. So I had an experience submitting cards to PSA. I only submitted 7 cards. It obviously took a year for them to come back. But out of the 7 cards that I submitted, 2 of them were mislabeled with the wrong label. In order to get the label fixed, it would have been pain in the butt that I never went through with. And it was sort of surprising to me that a company whose entire job is not only to grade cards, but to sort of catalog and authenticate them, regularly gets us wrong, in this case, 2 out of 7. I know that the total number is probably less frequent than that, but it made a big impression on me. Also, in one case, I am 90% sure that they accidentally damaged one of my cards. It was very small damage. It was a chip on top of one of the cards that was not there before. I checked the pictures, so it's possible that damage occurred in transit. It's possible it occurred when they pulled it out. It's not clear if it's their fault or just how it was mailed to them. I don't know, but I've heard many other stories of this, of the grading company either damaging the card or it being damaged in transit. Second experience I had was submitting cards to Beckett Authentication Services, BAS, to get a card, to get multiple cards, their signatures authenticated, and also on top of that to have the cards graded. That overall was a slightly better experience in grading, but the slabs came back with multiple issues. So 2 of the slabs had hair inside the case, not my hair, definitely, and the cases were full of kind of scratches and these opaque sort of parts of them. That was really disappointing because I feel like a big reason that you pay the premium to get a card graded is not only for the obvious reasons, but also to have it inside the slab, something that's nice to look at, which we'll come back to. In this case, they told me to send them back. They paid for a shipping label back, and after doing all that, got the cards returned to me. And again, one of them had a hair in it, and there were other issues, including scratches and opaque smudges on the slabs. So even after the resubmission, it happened again. Third experience I'll mention is with BGS, Beckett Grading Services. I got multiple cards graded. They all came back. That was a video I made where they were all 8.5. Almost every single one, the slab had a crack at the bottom. Sometimes the crack was small, sometimes it was big. It's not clear if it was a crack that happened in their factory or in transit back to me. I don't know, but I took pictures, I sent it to them. They had me send the cards back again to get them reslabbed. I got them reslabbed. Most of them did not come back with a crack, but one of them had a new crack in it, and this time, one of the cards was damaged. So in the process of reslabbing it, whatever happened, they ended up dinging one of the corners, which was disappointing. So 3 out of 3 experiences with grading companies were very negative. And it wasn't just the specific things that happened, it's just how they were handled, right? Poor communication, terrible turnaround times. People are now waiting more than a year to get their cards graded. The overall customer service is just terrible. The issues that I've heard about go beyond just what I experienced. Everyone knows about other YouTubers who put out these videos showing what they've had. Rusty from TCA Gaming had these packs that PSA opened and then claimed they couldn't grade because they opened them accidentally, but they wouldn't admit it. And it took in tons and tons of fighting to get that fixed. I imagine for most people who don't have a stature, those issues never get fixed. So what are the implications of all this, the bad customer service and so forth? It's a worse experience for people, including myself. And so if the hobby is supposed to be fun for me, I don't want to do something that's not fun, that takes a ton of time and effort and ultimately just leaves me feeling disappointed and that I didn't enjoy it. Perhaps more importantly, it's a bad experience for new customers. So people who are just getting into the hobby may not continue to grade, just like I'm making that decision right now. And overall, it engenders less trust in these companies. I think their entire business is predicated on trust, that you can trust the grades that they give your cards. And in this case, just seeing the company being run poorly, at least on the customer service end, on the quality verification end, leads to less trust in the company, which is something we'll come back to. All right, all that was reason number one. Reason number two, I'll hold it up. Reason number two is aesthetics. When I first got cards graded, I really liked the look of them. I still do like the look of them somewhat, but what I'm really disappointed by is actually how hard a slab makes it to see the underlying card. And it may not make a huge difference, except that in these cases, you're picking your best condition cards. And so, in theory, the whole point of putting them in a slab is because you want to see the pristine mintiness of the card on display. And so when the slab is opaque, or especially these slabs get scratches or come out of the factory with scratches, it's not clear sometimes, even when you have it up front, if the scratch is on the card or on the slab. You have to hold it up very, very close to tell. So slabs can get scratched, they can get these smudges, areas of opaqueness, and especially the Beckett slabs. I do in general like Beckett more than PSA, but the Beckett slabs have that inner sleeve often that adds even more opacity. So the whole point is to see the card, and it makes it harder to see the card, and it makes beautiful condition cards look worse because there could be scratches or smudges on the case. It kind of defeats the purpose to me. I personally like putting cards in binders. I double sleeve them, put them in the binder. I can pull it out, still hold it in a double sleeve without damaging it, and I think that's good enough for me. Issue number 3 is consistency. Consistency of the grades, and essentially what that leads to is how much we trust these grades. So as I mentioned, I think that consistency is the number one reason that PSA and BGS and any other grading company, why they and their cards have value. You're paying a premium to know that the card deserves the grade that's on the label, nothing higher and nothing lower. So if you don't trust them for anything else, to do good customer service, quality assurance on the slabs themselves, turnaround times, in general, admitting their mistakes and compensating people fairly, why would you trust them on getting the right grades for the cards, right? If they do all this other stuff poorly, what are the chances they do this other thing well as well? And I personally think the chances are low. Obviously, these companies have years and years of history and years of getting things right, and there is a lot of consistency, but the problem is even a small amount of inconsistency can make a huge difference. There are tons of examples circulating on the internet, some really in-depth videos of people who actually submitted explicit tests, like cards that they knew would get a certain grade because their experience or previous grades that card had gotten before they took it out of the slab, sending it in, getting different grades than they expected. Those videos were meant to demonstrate, I think, how much worse the quality control has gotten during COVID, and I think that's definitely true. But it's not just COVID, because we know for a fact that it's gotten harder. Well, I should say maybe not for a fact, but most people think it's gotten way harder to get a PSA 10 because they've intentionally tried to make it harder to get a 10. That means that an older 10 is different from a 10 nowadays. So there is that inconsistency already baked into it, not just because of falling standards of hiring the right kinds of graders during COVID. In my personal experience, I've bought in cards that definitely did not merit the grades they had. Like I got a Beckett 9 that had like edge where the entire bottom of the card was somewhat ripped. It could be that happened after the card was slabbed. It could be before. There's no way to know. But again, if the entire point is to have that consistency and it doesn't come through, it defeats the purpose. I think that in the medium term, a lot of these companies will reap what they sowed during COVID, right? If they had worse quality, not just everything else, including communication and quality control, but worse quality consistency of grading, people end up learning that and wanting to use the company less. And I think in the very, very long term, I'm also bearish on graded cards because I think it's likely that eventually machines replace humans to grade. Machines will be a lot more consistent. And if we fast forward to that day, maybe it's in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know. I think it's likely to come one day. People look back at the graded cards we have now and think it's a joke. It's a joke that we let the human eye make these judgment calls, often when they only have, seconds or however long it is to make a judgment call per card. And people think, obviously there's tons of inconsistency there. I would only trust a machine to grade my card because a machine will do it the same way every single time, not to mention faster, potentially. And so at that point in time, I think cards that were graded before the machine age will not be seen as consistent. Anyway, these are just my opinions. Again, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. I just want to explain my thought process. But basically putting it all together for me, if I don't have a good experience grading the cards, I don't ultimately like how they look, and I don't ultimately trust that they're going to retain value either in the medium term or the long term, it just becomes a no-brainer for me that it's not something I want to pursue as part of the hobby. Luckily, I have a lot of fun with other aspects of the hobby, both in Pokemon as well as Star Wars, as well as other collectibles you can probably see over there. I'll make a video maybe on some of those sometime. Tons of other collecting goals to pursue, tons of other things I enjoy trading and playing, and so this isn't going to diminish my enjoyment of the hobby overall. It's just a change in direction that I'm going to make. All that considered, I am very eager to hear your thoughts. I'm sure a ton of people disagree with me, which is great. I love hearing arguments on both sides, so please do leave comments, and I'll try to respond to them. All right, thanks for watching, and take care.